All right, let's start. I just released the week 7 challenges. These are all extra credits, so don't worry about the points and then the thing. And then let me announce a little bit of thing before I start for the some of the description for the final CTF. So all week 7 challenges are final CTF, and then for the award ceremony that we will have in the 2 weeks later, I will just count like the week 7 category for like the making ranking, and then there will be 3 prizes. And then right now I'm recording, so I cannot tell what's the prize. And then some of you know that, yeah. So like the last one is like the arrived in the US, and then like it will come, I believe, yeah. And then this one is real, not the replica for today. So like I have a travel schedule next week. So like we will have a remote classes, and then like I don't want to be a lame professor. So yeah, we will have a watch the video lecture on the March 6th about the advanced defense. And then we will have another fun day. So like I will tell Lucas to come here and then bring all the pizzas and soda. And then we will watch Hackers movie. And then I like that movie a lot. Yeah. So like that movie inspires a lot of the hacker spirit inside of me. So like I hope you also feel that kind of vibe from the movie. Yeah. And then like on March 13th, we will have a final CTF award ceremony. So I set the due date for the final CTF as the Sunday 11:59 p.m. because like I need to get the rankings first before coming to the class. Yeah, but I will announce later about how I will collect the scores about that. Yeah, and then we will not have a class on the March 15th, so I will let you play with all the rest of challenges to get more points. Yeah. Any questions or objections? No? And one more thing that I want to announce is like that I personally don't like the due dates. And like I set the due dates to force you to keep up the schedules, but I know you are busy with the other classes. Yeah, sorry about like pushing you so hard for the first few weeks, but I'm seeing that many students are keeping up with the challenges very well. So all the challenges submitted by like March 24th. So because I need to get the letter grade on the March 27th or something. So that's why I set the hard deadline for that. But it's plenty of time, right? Yeah. So please finish until that time. And then my philosophy is that like everyone in this class should get A. Yeah. So that's why I set the extra credit as like more than 10,000 points. Yeah. If you solve all the extra credits, you can easily get A. Yeah. So please don't like blow away like that kind of opportunity. Yeah. All right. So let's do a little bit of recap about like what we have learned about the 6 set of the challenges. So we started with the basic reverse engineering, and like that challenges give a lot of fatigue about reading the disassembly, but you have figured out, I hope so, about like the capability of the reading the disassembly and then identifying where the buffer is. That's quite essential to solve the challenge, because like the source code sometimes tells a lie to us. They say buffer size is 20, but that's not true. So to get the exact layout on the stack at runtime, we have to read the disassembly. Yeah. So that's why we learned about that kind of the thing in week 1. And week 2 was the starting of learning the control flow hijacking attack. So we just covered the buffer overflow attack, and the tasks in there is just jumping over the existing code called the get or shell function. And then at that time, I focused you to, I want to let you focus on like just jumping to specific address. And then in week 3, so I told you that like there are no dumb developers who will put like a get or shell functions in the program. No, there are. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, but usually like they don't have like that kind of function. In that case, we can inject our shell code thanks to the von Neumann architecture. Yeah, there's no distinction between the code and data previously, but these days, like we do have a non-executable bit in the page table. So there's a restriction, but we learned about how we can write the shellcode and inject it. And in week 4, so before week 4, what we learned is about like some computer systems in 1998. So the buffer overflow vulnerability was first discovered by like a Robert Morris, no, not discovered by him, first exploited in the wild in 1988, maybe like before many of you were born in. Yeah. So after that, like that kind of knowledge was systemized in like the FRAC, one of the hackers magazine, so-called Exploiting Buffer Overflow Vulnerability for Fun and Profit. I believe that's the title. So if you're curious about that, just search about like the FRAC, PHRACK, and the buffer overflow, fun and profit, then you will have a neat text document. And then that is the original document that inspired a lot of hackers to exploit the buffer overflow vulnerability. So until week 3, we just learned about like that kind of a historical stuff. But starting from week 4, we learned several defense mechanisms, including stack cookie, discovered in the 1998. That's local in Oregon, because StackGuard was developed by like Oregon Graduate Institute. Yeah, and then ASRL and DEP. These are all implemented around like a 2003-4 timeframe. And then that's after like so a little bit of historical thing is like after FRAC publishes that kind of the document, there are many script kiddies, like the ones to exploit that kind of vulnerability. So the vulnerability was so serious. So that's why like the academics and security researchers and the hardware designers all combine together and try to develop some of the exploit mitigation techniques against that. And in addition to that, we learned about like there's a fundamental defense against the buffer overflow attack. That is base and bounds check. And then that was implemented as a soap-bound and hard-bound in 2008 and 9. The main reason was like it was too slow. So that cannot be applied to the deployable system right now. But in some of the sector, for example, thinking about the nuclear power plant, or like if you write some of the programs to determine whether to shoot the nuclear missile or not, there should be like some of the voting between the US president and then other cabinet person or DOD person. So if there is some of the exploit, then that's a serious problem. So that kind of some of the sectors requires like don't care about like any kind of performance, but security is so important. In that case, even if like the techniques are slow, we can use that. And after we have all these kind of the defense, we learned about the return-oriented programming, which is a new type of the language. You can code any kind of the program using the stack. Yeah. So implication of the return-oriented programming is that because it's Turing complete, you can write any of the program. And basically how we use is like if we can make a program as a statement of the function call and then arguments, then we can easily translate those kind of the thing into the stack values. And if you search a little bit, there's a tool called inside Pawn Tools, and then also there's a tool called Anger. Yeah. So you can search about like some of the automatic way to generate the a-rop payload if you just type some of the function call with the arguments. So, and I believe you also realize that building the a-rop gadget, finding a-rop gadgets and then building the stack values are quite mechanical. So it's quite procedural thing, right? So there's no AI required. So we can automate, you can easily automate with the very simple algorithms. And then in week 6, last week, yeah, we learned about the arbitrary read and write. So what we did is like the buffer overflow is like a specific attack that allows attackers to achieve control flow hijacking and arbitrary code execution. So we try to generalize that kind of vulnerability into like an arbitrary read and write. And then if the attacker has arbitrary read or sequential read, then they can easily break a stack cookie, ASRL, those kind of the information hiding related techniques. And also using arbitrary write. If we know that the entire address space and then address for the target function argument, those kind of thing, then we can launch arbitrary code execution. So the arbitrary write to challenge, that actually lets you practice about in combination of the sequential arbitrary read and write, you can achieve the arbitrary code execution. And then we learned about the format string vulnerability. So one can easily turn the format string vulnerability into arbitrary read, sequential read, and arbitrary write. So that's another like a specific example, but the functionality is quite general as you can launch arbitrary read write. Yeah. So after learning all these kind of things, so please think again about like your attack strategy. So from week 1 and 6, the challenges are asking very small specific thing, but the challenges you will face after you graduate from OSU, go to some other job, and then working as a pen tester, there's no input function that indicates like there's a vulnerability. So you need to find the vulnerability, and also you need to analyze what you have, and then what are your capabilities, and then what are the weaknesses of the program, and then mix and match the skills to pawn the real world program. And then the final CTF is about the practicing, that kind of thing. So I will not let you know about like where the vulnerability is, but there's a source code provided, and the description gives a little bit of hint about how you can solve the problem. And then you need to think about the attack strategy. So to launch the control flow hijacking attack. So for some cases, we can hack the program with the arbitrary read. If we just need some of the stealing data from the memory, then we can just launch arbitrary read. But the most of the cases, if you want to do some more, for example, running a shell or running arbitrary code, then you must launch arbitrary write or somewhat similar buffer overflow sequential write attack. And then suppose you have an arbitrary write capability, then what you might override is like the override control data, such as save DBP frame pointer, or the return address, or global offset table function addresses, or you can override any kind of function pointer. So we have not practiced reverse engineering and then the exploiting the vulnerabilities in C++, compile the program. So the difference between the C and C++ is like a C++ has a polymorphism. So in their object, they do have a member function pointers. And then have you heard about the virtual functions in C++? Yeah, so that kind of object uses a lot of function pointers inside there. Yeah. So what that means is that in C language, if the programmer does not explicitly use function pointer, then it's hard to find one to pawn like the function pointer. But in C++, if the developer uses a virtual function, then we can easily find like some of the places that we can override and then change the behavior of the program. And then so the reason why I emphasize arbitrary write is like the arbitrary write includes the sequential write, and the buffer overflow is the example of the sequential overwrite. Yeah. And then we learned about the stack cookie, and then stack cookie can easily avoided by the leaking the stack cookie or using arbitrary write. We can just bypass and then directly overwrite the return address. And also using the side channel attack, we can match the stack cookie byte by byte. Yeah. So that's the lesson that we learned from the stack cookie. And then for the data execution prevention, so even in the von Neumann architecture, system engineers revived the Harvard architecture kind of concept. So nowadays we cannot run on data, but we can reuse existing code. And we learned about the return-oriented programming. And then, so I taught you as like in week 5, we just practice return to libc, and then taught return-oriented programming in week 6. And the reason is the return to libc is developed in 1998, that kind of time frame. So right after the frag released the buffer overflow attack, some of the people just don't want to write the shellcode. Yeah. And then I believe learning about assembly or just return to system. Yeah, return to system is much more easy, right? So like some of the attackers use that kind of the techniques. So return to libc is quite old technique. But the return-oriented programming is, some of the hackers are using that, but not the systematic way like this. So I believe like you only practice that pop return and then pop return, those kind of the thing in both 32 and 64-bit. But in old days, in 2003, 4, 5, the hackers are not using return-oriented programming in that way. They just jumped into some of the weird instruction and return to have some of the specific thing that they need for the exploitation. So the technique is not systemized like that. But in 2007, a PhD student at Stanford, whose name is Hobab Shaham, and he's now a professor at UT Austin. And then that guy published a paper. So the paper title is quite weird, Innocent Flash on x86 or something. So like the implying that we can reuse existing code on the bone and then do whatever we want. And then he proved that this is Turing complete. And later, some of the hackers presented in Black Hat that they mentioned about this kind of the pop return kind of the systemized technique. So return-oriented programming was quite hard, and then it was not discovered directly after some of the techniques. But what I believe is in combination of the efforts and the academics and hackers and researchers, so all their efforts contributes towards systematize the knowledge like this. So that's why we can enjoy return-oriented programming in current form. So, and then in week 3 or 4, I told you that you want to kill me after you learn about the return-oriented programming, because using that technique is quite easy, and then you can solve all the challenges using that. But the reason why I taught in order is that I want to give the experience that you can fast forward around the 20 years of the hacking experience in just 5 or 6 weeks. Yeah. And another defense was ASRL, but randomized addresses might not be problematic to you anymore if you have information leak capability. Yeah. The reason is the ASRL is quite dumb. They cannot shuffle the inside of the region. And then the reason is, so in the operating system, there is a principle called principled technique called the copy on write. And then that allows reducing memory footprint a lot by sharing the non-writable pages across the multiple processes. So for example, Google Chrome, their binary and then library files, when loaded, I believe nowadays it's around 1 gigabyte. Yeah. And what that means is that if you open a new tab on Google Chrome, that's a new process. And then if you open 1,000 processes, then it will require 1 terabyte of memory. But most of your machines are not available for terabyte kind of the memory. And then 48-bit virtual memory space is what is that? The limited by 256 terabytes. So we can easily go up for that if we learn big programs a lot. So operating system designers optimize the lazy loading kind of the scheme. So they share all the pages and then they copy the page content whenever it is required. And then how they detect that is first, make all the memory read-only. And then if there's a write access to the writable page, but that's read-only, if they detect that, and then copy only that page. So that's why it is so called as copy on write. And then that kind of principle, if you break it, then like it harms the system's scalability. So that's not allowed in this era. So that's why our current ASRL is quite dumb. And then as I introduce some of the papers, there are some of the academic people who don't know about the copy and write principle, keep publishing that, oh, we can use a fine-grained ASRL. Yeah, maybe in like a single process environment. Yeah. So these are the list of the techniques. So please use this slide as some of the cheat sheet. Whenever you see the new challenges and then you don't know how to solve like some of the, after you find the vulnerability, if you cannot get the strategy to attacking that, please revisit the slide and then try to think about it again and again. And then you have a lot of weapons, and then you need to choose the right weapon to fight against the challenges. Any questions about the recap? Yeah, the recap itself takes 20 minutes. It's too long. So week 7 challenge set is like the, I want to give an opportunity that you can apply techniques learned by yourselves. So you have learned many ninja skills. So now it's the time to like show your ability. Yeah. And then like many students like afraid of like oh, real CTF is too hard. Yeah. But I don't want to hear that. So that's why I created like a somewhat the pseudo CTF kind of the environment. And then hopefully this could be used as a springboard that you can jump on like the real CTF challenges. And we need more players in OSU Sec. Yeah, right? So that's why, yeah. And then like right now I released the 11 challenges, and then all the challenges are like I used for the previous years. But in this year, I would like to create more challenges. So there will be at least 4, but I believe like 7 or 10 challenges will be released in this or next week. Yeah, and then those challenges will have much more fun. Yeah, and then Lucas is also committed to create some challenges, and then yeah, he's always asking me to get some privilege to like tease you all by creating some weird challenges. So I want to grant that privilege to him. Yeah, and then like so like one of the questions from Zoom is like what server will they be on? It's like the VMCTF2, because that's all the protections are enabled. So another thing that I will tell you is like the challenges with the all protections enabled. For example, PIE and no binary, those kind of thing. So I was keep mentioning that like until week 3 it was 1998, and then week 4 2004, and then ROP week 6 is 2007, but now week 7 is in the era of 2023. Yeah. So. And then the challenges not only requires reverse engineering and then exploitation skills that we learned from this class, it may also need some external knowledge. But for those kind of thing, I pasted some of the link that you can study. So please use the information in the link and then study that thoroughly if you miss some of the part, and then try to think hard to solve those challenges. And then I'm okay with this. Some of the students don't finish week 6 and then just solve week 7 because that's more important. So that's why I set the score for the week 7 is quite high. Yeah. So we will do final CTF online like this. So this is a photo of like our team in the 2015 when we won the DEF CON CTF final. And then I'm at here, not this guy. I'm at here. And then this is a Loki art. This is Loki art. And then this is some other guy. Yeah. And then challenges are on VMCTF2 server. And then for the award eligibility, I'll set the due date as March 12th, 11:55 p.m. So I will cut off at that time to collect all the score. Yeah. And then they get the ranking. And then top 3 players will get the award. And then like I will give the privilege to the first place winner, choose one of the prize first, and then second place winner will choose the second prize, and then third place winner should get the remainder, remaining one. And then so actual due date of all the challenges will be like the same as like the end of the day for I need to collect all the grade. So even if the CTF award is not eligible, you can still work with the challenges to get the points for your grade. Any questions before I go over each challenges for some of the hints? All right, let's move on. So the first challenge is so-called the run command. And then like I create a program, and then you can take a look at the source code. And then what it does is like if you type the name of the file or a directory, then it will run ls, that one. So if I type flag internally, it will run ls flag. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. So the code is, so you can type some of the user argument, and then it will check some of the input. So it will prohibit you to use some of the weird command. And then what it will do is it will attach ls-l, and then it will put the user argument. And then inside of the check input, there are some of the bad characters. So I believe you know something about the shell command. So if you put the semicolon, then you can start a new command. And then with the or and and, you can also conjunct several commands. So I intentionally prohibit the kind of injecting that kind of command. Yeah. So the challenge is that even with this kind of condition, can you inject the command and get the flag? That's the challenge. Yeah. So later you can revisit this slide after you take a look at the challenge. So I just want to provide some of the information, so you can also watch this video later. So don't worry much about if you cannot understand what's going on in there. So some of the hint is that try to think about how you can run the command that you wish when you can inject some of the string at here, but without these kind of characters. So I highly recommend what kind of special characters are available for shell. And then some of the things are not blocked. Think about how you can exploit that to read the flag. And the second challenge is called a guess my random, but it's the name itself is quite disguising. So you can never guess the random. You should exploit the vulnerability in the program to read the random value. Yeah. So there are some hints on the description, but I believe I don't have to provide more hints in this slide. So the important thing is even if the challenge name says a guess my random, don't ever try guess. Yeah, you need to read it by exploiting the vulnerability. And then I believe I taught everything about how you can exploit that. So one hint is you need to create a vulnerability by using one of the vulnerability in the program. Yeah. You will see what it means when you tackle the challenge. And the next challenge is name is a one format string. So you will have only one chance to run the format string vulnerability. So I changed the format string vulnerability challenge a little bit. So it allows you to do arbitrary read and arbitrary write. Yeah. So that you can use it as a information leak and then control flow hijacking. But in this case, it only let you run format string for one time, but the ASRL is enabled. Yeah. So for this challenge, you need to create the buffer overflow vulnerability using the format string vulnerability for one time. So the hint for the steps are, so for the first chance on the single chance of with the single chance of the format string vulnerability, can you launch format string attack to collect the required information? And at the same time, can you create a buffer overflow vulnerability? And then you need to return back to the input function. Then you can create the loop of like the unlimited time of the format string attack. So it's a little sophisticated, but not that complex. So the implication about this format string attack is like you can use a format string attack with the sequential write, arbitrary read, arbitrary write. But at the same time, you can print out some of the values. And also using arbitrary write or sequential write, you can create the buffer overflow vulnerability. So in just a single chance of the format string, you can do everything at once. Even if you cannot achieve the control flow hijacking, you can create the condition that the not vulnerable code turn into the vulnerable code to the buffer overflow vulnerability. Then you can hijack the control flow of the program. And the next challenge is some of the text game. So how many of you have played this kind of game? Maybe all of you? Yeah. So I also like this. Yeah. And then my wife always see me like the very silly that like you cannot win. Why do you play? But I like it. Yeah. And then internally, the code says that like if your code gets over like around like the 3.9 million, yeah, then you can get the flag. And the reason why I set this kind of the value is that like the highest score ever was like this kind of value. But I know that our hackermen can easily bypass that. And then one hint is like I believe you can easily get the 4 billion score or something. Yeah, that's the hackerman's way. Yeah. So you can do that to read out the flag. Yeah. And the next challenge is that the challenge is very kind. What that means is that, so it asks for one of the address. If you put that address as a hexadecimal number, it jumps to there. So naturally, what the program is doing is a control flow hijacking for you. Yeah, but only one chance. And then there's no executable stack. You cannot jump to the shellcode. But in that case, where do you want to jump? So the important thing is that stack canary is there. So, but there's no buffer overflow. Just jump. And then non-executable is enabled, so you cannot use shellcode. But it's not PIE, so you can reuse some of the code in the program. But you need to think wise about where you want to jump. Then you can launch ROP, actually. So think creatively to where you want to jump. And the next challenge is that for this one, title is very sincere. It's not disguising anything. So there is a mechanism called the seccomp Berkeley packet filter. And then I will teach you in the next lecture. And then what it does is like it filters system calls. So I intentionally disallow write and executable system call from the challenge. So if you try to run exec-ve, then it will kill the program. If you try to use the write system call, it will kill the program. So the only allowed system calls are like open, read, And then else-seek is required by like the launching of the program. And then like these kind of two system calls are required for like at the end of the program it exits. So like I allowed like these 5 system calls. And then if you try to invoke any other system call, the kernel will kill the program. So you can do whatever you want. You can launch this, you can run your shellcode or like whatever you want to do, but you cannot use system calls other than these. Then the challenge is like can you read the flag? So what we have practiced is open, read. We can read the flag. Then we need write to print out the flag. So printf internally use write system call, but that's prohibited. So I believe our cyber ninjas can leak the flag even if there's no write system call. Yeah. So that's the task. And then you can open the flag, read it to the memory, but you cannot write. So one of the hint is that you can leak the flag character by character, and then access system call is allowed. And then if you put the argument to the exit as one character of the flag, then you can receive that as a result of the program's return value. So for example, I believe like when you played with the stack cookie 3, you have seen a lot about the exit status 134 or something like that, right? So that you can actually get the exit code after executing the program. So please use that using the p.wait and then p.poll in the Pwn tools to get the exit code to leak the flags out. So the implication is that, so even if you don't use a write system call, you can leak the flag. Challenge number 6 is about the deprivileged. And then as the challenge mentioned, in the main function, it will start with the deprivileging the GID. So take a look at this one, get GID, not EGID. So it will deprivilege and then run the target. And then the target function has the buffer overflow vulnerability. But you all know that if we don't have an effective GID, we cannot read the flag. Yeah. So in this case, you can still read the flag with one condition. So if you analyze the source code, you will see that there is a hint about you need to create a good luck file. And then if you create the symlink to flag to good luck, then it will open the file before deprivileging the GID. So the kernel will give you the file descriptor 3. Excuse me. And then after the deprivilege happens, because you are not opening the file again, you can still read from the file descriptor. So the implication of this challenge is that the file descriptor is so-called capability system. So in the secure system design, we can have like two kind of the systems. One is about the access control system, and the other is capability system. And the access control system is about like if we try to open the file, then the Linux kernel will determine like what is the UID or GID of the disk account, and then compare that with the file's access control bits, and then allow it if it is like the access control bit matches, and disallow it if the GID is not matched with that. Excuse me. So that's the access control system. But once the file descriptor is generated, Linux works as a capability system. And then capability system is like Linux gives you one of the ticket. And then if you give the ticket to the other person, even if Linux did not grant that guy to use the ticket, they can use the ticket. So something like that, yeah. Oh, one of the question is that like I tried to fetch week 7 and VM CTF2, it does not work. So the correct way to fetch that is fetch final-CTF. That's the way. And the next challenge is like the challenge name is the bug name itself. So tocttou, what that means is the time of check, TOC, to T, time of use. And then this is basically a race condition bug. And then let's take a look at the source code. And then what it does is like it will print out the content of the file. And then maybe you want to get the file name as flag, okay? Then it will try to print out flag, but before that, it will run stat. And then for that file, if the GID of that file is same as not the effective GID, the original GID, then you can read it. Otherwise, it will kill the program. So if you type flag, it will fail. But there is a time of check of the stat, and then time of use of the file, and then there are 3 seconds of sleep. So what you can do is create the symlink to some readable file, and then run the program. It will pass the stat part. And then during waiting 3 seconds of the sleep, you can change that symlink to flag file. Then at the time of use, you can read the flag. This challenge is practicing the time of check to time of use. So I believe this is the easiest challenge among all the challenges in week 7. And then the reason why I put this challenge is for the next challenge. Yeah. So the challenge name is now caffeinated, so there's no sleep at all. Yeah, I removed the sleep part, but you can still pound the challenge. So some of the ways like you can brute force a lot about like changing the file name to symlink from the readable one flag again and again. Yeah, that might be one of the way, but there is a 100% successful way to do that. And then hint about that is like using MK50. And then from the challenge website, there are descriptions about like how you can use that. So I don't care about what kind of method you use. So you can solve it with the brute force. And then there are like the 1 to 2% of the success rate. So it's quite high. Yeah. Higher than like what is that, ASRL 6. It's 1/512, right? Yeah. So it's higher than that. But if you want to go further, then you can make the exploit 100% successful. Yeah. And the other challenge is so-called guess password. And then this challenge in the name is also disguising. You should never guess the password. Yeah. You can get the password. And then in the source code, I put the password as a 00000, but it's scrambled. Password is not that one. Yeah. And then what you can do is, so what it does is like it will check the character by character for the password, but I intentionally put the micro slip for the 200 millisecond if the character is wrong, incorrect. Yeah. Character is correct, I believe. Yeah. So you can use that as a timing side channel. So if you can observe some of the slow return, then that means like your guess was correct. So using that timing side channel for 1 bit information, you can leak the password from the application. And the reason why I created this challenge is like that this kind of thing happens in reality. Yeah. So they don't insert sleep, but they do insert some of the additional checks or something. So if we can make the program fail fast for the incorrect, but run slowly for the correct one, then we can use the same technique to steal the information. Yeah. So the implication of this challenge is to practice side channel attack on some realistic, not realistic though, environment. And then the last challenge released today, there will be 5 to 10 more challenges. Yeah, is a-rop-static, and the reason why this challenge is different is, so take a look at the source code. So what it does is like just a one buffer overflow. And then now you know how to exploit the buffer overflow, ROP, then that will be easy. But the problem is that the program size is just a 1.6 kilobyte, and then it does not include any kind of a library. So I intentionally compiled this program to exclude all the dynamic libraries. So there's no exec-be function on the memory space. So it only has the program's code. And then internally, because I use puts read, and then internally it has an exit and then string length or something like that. So you can call these functions, and then your gadgets will be very limited because the binary size is very small. But even in that condition, you can achieve exec-be VNSH. That's possible. So this challenge is for practicing that, and that's why I set the score for this one as a 2000. Yeah. It's worth it. Yeah. So I will not leave you alone for tackling those challenges. You are allowed to discussing each other, and then ask questions to me and then Lucas. Yeah, but we will not give a direct hint or the assist you for by editing your code or those kind of thing, because it's in-class competition. Yeah. So for week 7 challenge set, please practice your skills that you learned from week 1 to 6. And you need to think very creatively and then think out of box. So please recall that there's no single way to hack the thing. So there are arbitrarily many ways to think creatively. And then if you think that you got the solution with the unintended manner, yeah, please let me know. Yeah, I would love to see those kind of the solutions. And then make sure that for the award eligibility, you need to finish the challenges March 12th, but I will accept the flag submissions until the end for your letter grade. Yeah. I want to see that everyone in this class got A. Yeah. Any questions? All right. Let's start the